Welcome to Dream Machine. My name is Arun.
My name is Patricia.
And we are continuing on with our discussion of DreamWorks Dragons. This time we're focusing on Season 1B.
Yeah, so we were really surprised on watching DreamWorks Dragons for the first time, considering that we'd never seen it before, and now we're just going into this, and now I'm really excited about what's going to happen, considering that we kind of left it off in a cliffhanger in the last episode.
Yeah, so in the cliffhanger we left off with Heather Report Part 1, so that's when we find a mysterious girl named Heather for Beach, who's played by the same actress as Amity Blythe from The Owl House, which is kind of cool.
Yep.
And so then we find out that she's actually a really disgusting traitor, and then we basically left off with that, and now they now have the Book of Dragons. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about Heather Report Part 2.
Okay, so in the second, Heather's betrayal of Berk caused the Book of Dragons to fall into the hands of Alvin the Treacherous, and Heather's imprisonment is now taking place on Berk. In order for them to get the book back from Alvin, Astrid disguises herself as Heather and goes into the Outcast territory. Towards the end of the mission, Astrid learns and confirms that Heather's true motives for helping the Outcast is actually freeing her parents, which I think was the big twist to think of all this, because, you know, we don't know what a truth and what a lie is with Heather, and then we actually find out, oh, hey, those parents actually are real.
Yes.
So,
yeah. And the fact that Heather is trying to tell the truth over to Astrid, and Astrid is now believing her because, you know, she essentially broke their trust. And, you know, she was manipulating Hiccup throughout this entire time, saying like, you know, I want to learn more about the dragons, and can you show me the book and everything like that. So she was trying to make it sound like, you know, she was this innocent girl who was just caught up with this unfortunate situation where she was like captured by pirates, and then she got herself free, and then her parents were captured by pirates, and you know, she was trying to find her way to saving them. But then in reality, no, her parents were actually captured by Alvin and his crew. And, you know, the only way that she can be able to free her parents is to actually get the book.
I mean, I think if you really look at it, it's kind of like, you can tell that Astrid is sort of jealous of the fact that, you know, Hiccup is not hanging around Heather and not around her. So, yeah, I think that foreshadows into, you know, what we're going to see further on into the series,
That's
I probably
right,
imagine.
Yes.
So it's kind of funny, though, because, like, for those of you who do not know, we reviewed the movies before we looked into the TV series, so we're sort of kind of, like, know sort of, like, what's happened, like, in between the series that is going on. So, in a way, I mean, everything that we're seeing right now probably doesn't surprise us all that much, really.
No, especially since, again, we have seen the movies, and we are familiar with how Astrid and Hiccup come to be. So, again, coming in from, you know, this is taking place after the first movie, and so this is when Hiccup and Astrid were not exactly getting along very well, because Astrid was a much better, you know, dragon trainer, and, you know, Hiccup was just this awkward kid who didn't really know too much about dragons because...
And by the way, if you want some major spoilers for a 15-year-old series, like, you know, they get married and have kids, so all your fanfiction memories come true. That's where we're at right now with How to Train Your Dragon. So, you know, if anything, we're just kind of like filling in the gaps here, like, you know, with the lore, I guess you could say, of How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah, exactly. It's like when we see the movies, and now we finally go into the TV series, it's like, oh, you know, this is what happens, you know, between the first and the second movie. So it's kind of like filling us in with additional adventures that we never got to see. So, yeah.
If anything, like, you know, the Hiccup and Astrid moments are kind of a bit more adorable, really, than they are kind of like, oh, wow, are they going to get together? Because we kind of already know already. So.
Yeah, I mean, we saw from like the second and the third movies that they do, but yeah, it's actually nice to see that development happening over time. And yeah, the fact that Astrid was willing to disguise herself as Heather so that she can be able to get the book and try to see if she can free her parents after, you know, Heather finally tells her the truth about everything is actually really brave and very, you know, commendable for Astrid to be taking a huge risk like that.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, like, that's, you know, the two-parter, I think, was actually really well done, I think, in that. And the fact that they left it off at that point and left everyone kind of, like, hungry for more, I think, was great. I think that's always a great place to, like, kind of leave it. I mean, like, they've done the same thing with, they did the same thing with Moon Gold Devil Dinosaur. They've, you know, the people who created the Owl House and people who created, like, all the other, you know, great series, I think, you know, of the 2010s. I think they did a very good job of doing that, like you're saying, like, okay, let's leave it off at this point, and then let's leave them all hungry for like when the show comes back. I think that was good. That was a good way of doing it.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think.
So overall, I'd say it's a really great two-parter and really great way of ending things off. And who knows? I mean, we don't know if we're ever going to see Heather again. I mean, we haven't reached that point yet in the series, but yeah, I mean, I hope that we do, and we'll see how the story continues on.
So the next episode is Thorfest, and Berk's annual festival sporting competition, the Thorfest Games, is underway, and all the teams are participating in the Dragons for the first time in Viking history. Hiccup is determined to finally beat Snoutlot to constantly gloat about being the reigning Thorfest champion, but Hiccup's success begins to make him arrogant and boastful, much to Adra's displeasure and disappointment. And,
I'm kind of mixed with this episode.
I mean, it sort of kind of reminds me a little bit of Parents' Day from Hey Arnold, except, minus the whole what happened to Arnold's parents kind of thing. Like it's like you can say it's kind of like the best and the worst of everybody in this episode. So you see Hiccup, and I mean, to be fair, I think this is an interesting aspect of Hiccup's character. I don't think we've ever kind of I think we've seen snippets of, but we never seen at its worst, and that is that when Hiccup becomes massively successful, that he cannot get enough of himself after that. And let's be honest, I think that's the direction that Hiccup would potentially go in when he gets to that. I don't think he's achieved maturity, enough further into the story in order to kind of learn from that. And dare I say, maybe this is the episode where he does actually learn from that from Astrid.
Absolutely.
Eventually.
I mean, especially since we knew him as kind of a slightly immature, awkward kid in the first movie. In the second movie, that's when he starts becoming a little bit more mature. And then the third movie, especially when he becomes the leader of Berk, that's when he really shows off his maturity. So yeah, that part I don't mind. That part I think makes a lot of sense within the character because, he always tries to compete in the Thorfest games and he loses every single time against Snotloud. And, the fact that he has the opportunity to win because this time they're including dragons into the competition and he's much better at training dragons than Snotloud. And so he's able to win those games. That makes a lot of sense. But Snotloud, oh my God, he is so annoying in this episode.
Well, that's how he is. He kind of reminds me a bit of Harold from Hey Arnold.
No, this is at his absolute worst. In my opinion.
I think everybody here is the absolute worst. I think in this episode, which I think is the point. I think but you get to see that. Snotlot is he's not Snotlot is not, basically necessarily being pushed not by his own ego. I think the one thing we find out is that he actually has an abusive parent in his
his dad who
his dad is an asshole.
He is an asshole.
I bet he feels very uncomfortable to be around. He is a very uncomfortable character, and it's interesting that they kind of make it out if Snotloud doesn't become the best ever within that we do to honor his memory that he gets severe consequences when he gets home.
Yeah, I mean. Especially since, his father and his father before him and his father's father before him, they've all won the Thorfest games. And so he has to uphold that family reputation of being the best of the best.
Yeah, but it kind of gives you the uncomfortable thing. If he doesn't do that, he's going to get abused at home, which is kind of that's uncomfortable. Yeah. It makes you wonder, though, now that they kind of introduced the fact that there's kind of this abusive relationship between, the father and Snotloud, it makes you wonder if that's going to play out later in the show.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I guess it does explain why Snotloud is a jerk because he comes from a jerky backstory.
Exactly, yeah, and so it makes you wonder that. It kind of reminds me of I don't know if we're going to get to that far, but the best character, and I'm sorry to keep going back to Hey Arnold, but because it is my go-to my go-to show, is that Helga Pataki obviously was could come across as a massive jerk, and a lot of people didn't like her when in that. But then when Helga on the Couch came along, and we got to see a lot more of her home life and the way things are with her and her dad and her mom, and everything like that. It gave you far more sympathy for her, and it makes me wonder, we don't know too much about Snotloud's, background at the moment and everything like that. I wonder if the more they expose, I think, as the show goes on, because we've got 4 seasons to go through with this, it makes you wonder if they're going to tell a bit more about this story. It makes you wonder if they'll make you a bit more sympathetic to this character.
No, we have 7 more series.
7 more series. I do apologize. So it makes you wonder if as the show progresses on, do we sympathize more with this character, or are they just going to basically just kind of play off as one episode and then we never talk about it again? It'd be a very big shame if that ends up being the case.
Well, we'll see. But right now, I mean, yeah, we do get to see Hiccup and Snotloud at their absolute worst. They are so cocky and just bragging about their skills. Whether it's Snotloud bragging about his strength or Hiccup bragging about his ability to control dragons very well.
Well, I mean, Snotloud doesn't do much bragging in this because, he ends up being bested by Hiccup in a number of events because obviously they're using dragons and not the traditional way. So if anything, Hiccup is the one who's massively boasting, one he's massively bragging bragging about that because he's never been, in his life he's never really been in this position before.
No.
He's never been in a position where he can please his father or that, or like to a 100% degree.
Yeah,
So,
and that makes a lot of sense in the context of the series.
Exactly, yeah. But I think the one thing you got to give forgiveness for is the fact. Let's be honest, this isn't Hiccup like as we like to see him like in How to Train Your Dragon 2 and 3. Like this is the Hiccup like he's just coming off the first episode, coming off the first movie, and he's probably going to be very immature still at this point. So you have to take that into account as well.
I have no issues with Hiccup at that point. I just find Snoutlout to be very annoying.
Well, I mean, but then you get to see why.
Yeah.
This is the thing, like it's the Helga Pataki situation.
Okay. And when you put it that way, I can forgive it a little bit more.
Yeah.
All right.
Next episode is When Lightning Strikes. Sudden lightning storms are endangering the residents of Berk, and it is believed that Thor is angry with the island. Mildew leads the superstitious villagers to blaming Toothless, the unholy offspring of lightning and death himself, for the lightning, and leaving Hiccup to find true answers to Thor's sudden destructive anger. And this is just Mildew once again being like the villain of the series, but I just with the fact that he keeps coming in and like saying, this is the reason why things are terrible because of this dragon, and I'm really surprised people haven't just caught on right now. It's like we get it, you hate dragons. Like,
I mean it's nothing new. We've already seen this, and to be quite honest, I kind of saw this from a mile away. Where in the beginning of the episode, to combat the fact that dragons have been blowing fire and the roofs are on, have been caught on fire and the houses are being destroyed, they decide, okay, we're going to put some iron and metal sheets on top of the roof so that there won't be any dragon flames happening. And then all of a sudden lightning strikes, and they're wondering, why is the lightning striking? Is it the dragons? No, it's because the lightning is being directed over to where the metal sheets are on top of the roof. It's contrasting with it, and so that's where all the fire is coming from. And so then when they build the Thor statue, that just makes it even worse. And it's like, I kind of saw this from a mile away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the reason why you had Benjamin Franklin create the lightning rod, because he was trying to combat the lightning strikes that were happening around the houses of Philadelphia. And so he thought, okay, well, if I build the lightning rod, it'll strike there as opposed to the roofs, and then the lightning can just penetrate down to the ground where it won't be able to affect any of the houses anymore. And so, I mean, that's just like one tiny rod. But if you cover your entire house with metal, then that's going to be a severe problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So nothing out of the ordinary for this one.
No, not really. I think it's just I think it was hilarious at the end when they they put the Thor statue in front of his Mildew's house, and then he gets all the lightning at the very end. So.
Yeah, a fitting punishment.
Okay. Next episode is What Flies Beneath. Toothless encounters a whispering death that happens to be a rival from the past. Blinded by their grudge against each other, Toothless runs away to confront the rival alone. Hiccup must find Toothless and reason with him before the rivalry turns fatal. And this is interesting, really, because we got to see a side of Toothless, from because you might he's been around the block before he saw Hiccup, so he's probably got rivals. He's probably got other character traits that we're not aware of yet, and Toothless has got severe hatred for various dragons around, and this Whispering Death is obviously one of them.
Yeah, and they have a personal history together where a long time ago this Whispering Death and Toothless attacked one another, and Toothless actually made a mark on this Whispering Death, and so now when he sees it coming back, he wants to get revenge on him.
Exactly. So I think it's interesting the fact that Hiccup has to be the voice of reason for Toothless, because sometimes Toothless usually ends up being kind of the other way around in these situations. So it's interesting to see how have a character reversal of Hiccup having to really put his dragon training skills to the test in order to get Toothless to see reason really with his Whispering Death. So
yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I mean, it gives more character development for Toothless, where we actually get to see more of a backstory that we didn't get to see in the other movies.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, and so next episode is Twinsanity. So we're going to choose to Darko the Deranged.
Oh, God.
Yeah, who is just it's just, how do you describe this guy?
This guy is like your dude bro. It's like, this guy is just like, inflated with so much ego because, he is now the new ruler of this village after his father was no longer, a part of it anymore. And so he thinks that he can be able to just take it over and he could just be able to like have this blood hungry and bloodthirsty rage of killing off dragons and stuff like that. And so, he's forcefully obligated to sign a peace treaty over to Berk. And, he wants absolutely nothing to do with it. He just wants to like, go over to where they fight off the dragons and being able to kill things, but lo and behold, but they don't do that anymore, and so they have to like put on this facade.
This is like Prince Zuko if instead of like having to go search for the Avatar, he decided to spend his entire time on the boat doing hard drugs. And like so like everybody now is just like has to deal with the rage of Prince Zuko for like for whatever reason. But I just thought that the fact that they had to hide the dragons from this guy and just the fact that all these shenanigans that took place in all of this is just it's interesting that you still have this situation where the Berk has now come to peace with the dragons. It doesn't mean everybody else has.
Yeah, exactly. So. They're the only ones that we know of that have come to peace with it. All the other villages have not, especially with this guy. I mean, where we get to see that he still has that blood hungry and bloodthirsty passion of killing off dragons. And so, he decides, I'm going to, now that I'm the leader of my village, I'm going to go over to this other village. And yeah, I know I have to sign this peace treaty, whatever. I just want to kill dragons. And so we have Hiccup basically like giving this guy a tour of the entire city of Berk, saying like, we're going to be doing this now. We're going to have a feast in your honor, and we're going to be doing this and this and that. And so, he's like obligated to do it, even though he just wants to kill dragons. Meanwhile, we have Rough Nut and Tough Nut arguing with one another of something stupid. They just basically like separate each other, and then Barf and Belch, their dragon, just basically goes out of control and like destroys things, or is like on the top of the roof, or is in the corner of the forest or something like that. And they're trying to hide him from Dagger the Deranged so that, he doesn't see it and he tries to kill it. And so, that whole shenanigan happens.
Yeah. In the next episode is Defiant One. Caught in a water spout, Toothless' prosthetic tail is damaged, rendering him unable to fly, and thus leaving him, Hiccup, and Snotlout stranded on Outcast Island. The three must work together to repair the damage, overcome the rivalry between Hiccup and Snotlout, and return home before they are captured by the Outcasts.
Yeah, and this is again Snotlout being a jerk.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, but he's been a jerk throughout this entire time, so it's nice to see, though, that Hiccup and Snotlout can, like, even though they have conflicting character traits, at least they can come together and be able to sort a situation now. So if anything, this probably makes them stronger rather than weaker in this episode. So.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand that, especially since, it was kind of Snotlout's fault that all of this had happened. But at least, together with him and Hiccup, they were able to escape from the island. Even though that, eventually they were, captured by Alvin and the Outcast, but still their teamwork was able to eventually get them to, eventually escape and being able to not be captured by Alvin. But yeah, again, it is kind of a little frustrating seeing Snotlout as his, continuing to be a jerk and not taking responsibility. But, at the end, I guess he kind of does, but still, it's starting to get old.
Mm-hmm. The next episode is Breakneck Bog. When Hiccup discovers Trader Johan's ship is shipwrecked and a rumored haunted bog with a gift made for him by his mother, he will stop at nothing to retrieve it, not even being followed by the fog monster. And so, in a way, I think I've kind of I think the ending of this episode is probably like more sentimental, if anything, because he's chasing after this thing that his mother left him, and then when he finds it, it's actually like a little model dragon. And
this is the first mention of Hiccup's mother. I mean, I guess this is even before the movie came out, the second movie, and then when we find out about what happened to Hiccup's mother.
I don't remember when I don't remember what the timeline of the announcement of the second movie was going to be, but I guess this was kind of like a bit of a teaser to like say that oh hey, we're going to probably talk about Hiccup's mother.
I think the second movie came out like maybe a year later, so this was kind of like a little teaser of what happened with Hiccup's mom, which actually is really nice. Where there's this this package that Johan was going to be delivering over to Berk, and it's like this little special gift, and Hiccup wants to be able to retrieve it because that's all he has of his mother, because he has little to no memories of her.
So,
Yeah, and then the fog monster is actually pretty cool. It's like this, water dragon. I thought that was actually really neat.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, it's funny because, some of these later episodes, I don't really have much to kind of say on, really. Like, they sort of just kind of happened, and we're sort of kind of like trying to make our way over to, the season finale, if anything. So,
But I do think this is a very important episode, considering of it basically,
like that, yeah, definitely. I'm not saying that's, yeah, but I think the rest of the episodes, there's not very much to write home about besides, like, these main talking points, really.
Yeah, you do have a point. Yeah, I mean, when we get over to the season 1 finale, where we finally get another 2-parter, we'll talk about that. But in the meanwhile, let's just go over the rest of them.
Yeah. So, gem of a different color. When Snotlout and villagers make mistake color changing dragon eggs for gems that bring good fortune, fish legs with the responsible for the eggs. Discovery makes a stand against Snotlout, who is trying to sell the eggs and reunite them with the Changeling mothers before they destroy Berk. And I thought this was a really important episode because I'm trying to sorry, my name's going fish legs. Obviously made a discovery, realized it was a really big mistake and tries to undo everything. But then obviously Snotlout being Snotlout, obviously tries to
Snotlout being Snotlout decides, I'm going to make a whole bunch of money with these colored gems. I'm going to be able to sell them to the highest bidder and make a whole bunch of money and get a whole bunch of swords.
Yeah, and
stuff.
destroy everything whilst you're at it. So yeah. It's kind of a poke on the worst of capitalism, really, when you think about it. Like, hey, I discovered this thing that people really want, not realizing it's kind of going to destroy everything at the end. It's kind of like, that's kind of I mean, that's not in a way that's kind of very subtle when you really think about it. But
Yeah, but I do actually like the way that they were able to do this episode, where Fish Legs is very knowledgeable about dragons, and he's read the book so many times, and he updates the book, and the fact that he sees these gems and he doesn't know that they're dragon eggs. I mean, he starts learning about that. Oh, these are a type of dragons I'm not familiar with. And, I may have caused severe damage over to Berk, and he feels a lot of guilt and he needs to take a lot of responsibility for it. So I do like that they were able to go into that direction, where usually like Fish Legs is like that awkward guy who just loves dragons to a very uncomfortable level. And he's just kind of like this nerd and this coward. So I'm glad that they were able to give him a little bit more of a development where he has to take responsibility for something involving with the destruction of his village, and the fact that he had no idea about it, and learning something new with it. So again, I do give credit for that.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, we get to the We Are Family season finale.
We are family.
During Berk's annual Bork celebrations, Hiccup is granted access to Bork the Bald's private and personal archives, where he finds information and maps about the islands inhabited by Night Furies and Bork notes. Hiccup is determined to bring Toothless to his family. After discovering the Bork notes are fakes made by the outcasts, the duo tries to flee, but then we can catch up by Alvin. I thought this was a really good start to the first few
this was
episodes.
great. I mean, the fact that
Let's throw in a big, story plot, which is like, oh wow, there might be more Night Furies out there, and then it turns out it's actually a massive trap by Alvin.
Yeah, and again, we wouldn't get the whole Night Fury thing until the third movie, which happened almost a decade later. So again, a lot of great foreshadowing of what would happen later on.
The one thing I'll say about this, and maybe I'm skipping a little bit too much, this makes the Outcast, a far more threatening villain. I think, dare I say, like at the very beginning, when we finally saw them, like in the middle of season 1.
Yeah, I mean, they were just kind of like these incompetent
I
pirates.
genuinely thought they were just going to be like, oh, hey, these are going to be these Saturday morning cartoon villains, but that are basically going to do like stupid stuff, and then it all gets resolved by the protagonist in the end. But no, the Outcasts are very clever in this.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, yeah, exactly.
Alvin's not Dr. Robotnik by any stretch of the imagination.
No, and I guess we kind of saw that with Heather Report parts 1 and 2, in which, he captured Heather's parents and threatened to keep them a hostage unless, she got the book from Berk. So we did get a little bit of that, but, in the last episode that we talked about where, they couldn't even capture Hiccup and Snotlout and hold them hostage for Hiccup to train the dragons long enough until they were able to escape. So it's like, okay, they're competent when they need to be, but we just thought, okay, they're just gonna like be write-offs. They're just gonna be like that goofy villain and his crew every once in a while that we get to see. But no, I think that, this was able to emphasize on how threatening they could be. So the fact that they were able to trick Hiccup into these private archives by Bork the Bold, where there might be an entire island filled with knife furies, and it turns out that it was actually a trap, and it was going to be Alvin and his crew capturing Hiccup and bringing him over back to Outcast Island so he can force him to train dragons so that they can be able to learn from him. And I thought that was actually really, really great.
Yeah. Then we finally get to We Are Family Part 2, and this, I think, has to be a really good series finale, I think, for this, because, we all know Mildew was a horrible, villain at the very beginning, and now he's sided himself with the Outcast. And it's funny because they do kind of like a bit of a flip where it's kind of like, oh, hey, now that he's not being useful, now he's not useful to Alvin anymore, he's going to end up being, being held captive as well. But then you find out, oh, no, he's only done that to effectively fool Hiccup into tell him how to train a dragon, and then Mildew's now then taking that knowledge to tell Alvin how to basically train a Night Fury, to train a Whispering Death, which is kind of like that's kind of an interesting thing for Mildew. Why is all of a sudden he's had this hatred of dragons, but then all of a sudden now he's decided that he's going to learn how to train one and train one for Alvin? What happened here? Why did all of a sudden he's decided to become this massive hatred for dragons, and then all of a sudden, I don't know, is he going to somehow betray Alvin at the very end, and he's going to find a way to eliminate all the dragons in his own thing?
I think that Alvin is trying to tell Mildew something if you help me train these dragons, we can destroy Berk and we can get revenge on the fact that you've been mistreated by them or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if
I don't know.
Alvin
I'm wondering because Mildew's sort of compelling in in a way than the more personated villain, I guess you could say, more than Alvin has. Alvin's more kind of exterior threat, while Mildew's kind of been in a more closer threat, I think. Again, we're not seeing the other seasons, by the way, so we have no idea what's gonna portray. But it makes you wonder. I wonder if Mildew's gonna do something that is gonna be okay, now that this has happened, I'm gonna find a way to eliminate dragons, for everybody, and and then it's the point where even Alvin might even have to confront Mildew at some point. So yeah.
But I do like the story though. I do
the
like
mind wanders.
The mind wanders, and I do really like the way that they were able to play the story out, where Mildew is essentially this massive manipulator. He sided with Alvin, and then Alvin decides to put him into prison, and then he tells Hiccup, I'm done wrong. I see the error of my ways. Can you show me how to train the dragon so that we can be able to escape together? And so, Hiccup finally escapes, but then Alvin is captured, and then Hiccup says, "Don't worry, Alvin. I'm going to save you, and I'm going to make sure."
Mildew?
Yeah, I'm going to save Mildew. I'm going to make sure that he's okay. But no, Mildew just turns out to be a double-crossing jerk, and he actually trains Alvin how to train the Whispering Death, and now Alvin has the knowledge so that now they can finally take down Berk.
Yeah, so this is where, and then that's going to move us into Season 2, Defenders of Berk, which we will tell you about another time.
Yeah. So I guess the thing that we need to talk about is what do we think of Season 1B? Season
1B. It's definitely, complements the Season 1A very well, I think. I think Season 1 as a whole, I think, has been a really good introduction, I think, to the How to Train Dragon TV series. And so it does make you wonder, what's going to happen in Season 2 now?
Yeah.
Because now we're going into Defenders of Berk, which, it makes you wonder that now that they've moved away from basically being training these dragons, it makes you, now they're going to have to learn how to now they learn how to ride them, now they're going to have to learn how to use them for defense.
Exactly, yeah. So that's what it is about. The Season 1 was essentially them learning about the dragons and how they can be able to train along with them. Now Season 2 is going to be used for defending Berk.
But I think the one thing they've left off very well is that now we've got this really threatening villains, and but on top of that, we've got ongoing relationship going between Hiccup and all the other characters, and even Hiccup's relationship with even some of the minor characters, I think, also give intrigue as well. You got Hiccup and Astrid, Hiccup and Snotlout, and also Hiccup between him and his father and various other ones, and so Hiccup in himself is learning how to establish himself amongst others and become this leader, as we all know he's going to be at the very end of the How to Train Your Dragon lore. So I'm interested to see how all that develops as we go along. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing where this this goes.
All right, so let's talk about our favorite and least favorite episodes of this season.
Ooh, so I think, in my opinion, I actually prefer Heather's report over We Are Family. To be honest, I think
I do too.
I do, yeah. I just think that I think Mildred just basically being like his triple cross, betrayals. His last one doesn't make all that much sense really. Because
mean,
he spent
it
all the
doesn't
time making all hating these dragons, and now he's happy to train Alvin how to use one.
Well, I mean, again, we're only going by the first season. I'm sure that they'll develop this story a lot more later on. So again, I think we just have to leave it as inconclusive.
I mean, yeah, like I remember it's going to be a case of like Mildred's about to do something like to actually like quadruple cross everybody. Maybe like he's going to manipulate everybody into like this whole thing, and yeah, I mean, it's going to see where we're going to end up being at the end of season 2. I don't know, maybe my mind about Mildew might have changed quite dramatically since then. But yeah, I just think that they've set this up pretty well, and yeah. But right now, Heather Report I think has to basically be my favorite episode. I think in this, I think.
All right then, and least favorite.
Least favorite, I think, we didn't talk very well about, Thorfest before, so I think maybe that's probably going to be our least favorite episode.
Yeah, I guess so, because, I mean, nobody's good in that episode. Even Hiccup is a jerk.
Understandably so, but yeah, I think that's the one thing that turned us off, I think, the most, maybe.
It did, yeah. Like, it was just, like, very unpleasant to watch. Mm-hmm. All right, so that is it. We have completed Season 1 of DreamWorks Dragons, and now we're going to go into Season 2, Defenders of Berk, and we're really looking forward to seeing how the story continues.
So until then, take care, and bye for now.
See you later.